Hello, everyone. Happy Memorial Day. I hope you are doing well. Hopefully this day has been restful and memorable and, of course, bringing honor to those who have fought and died for our freedom, for this country. So happy Memorial Day to you. And let's go ahead and take a look at the chat. Now, I will say Melissa Harris was first. So thank you, Melissa. Hopefully I can see you in the chat a little bit later. But then I did see Daniel was first, second. So hi, Daniel. Hopefully you are doing well this weekend, this long weekend. And to answer your question, I don't know what Oscar you're talking about. So any clarification on that would be most appreciated. Let's go ahead and take a look at the chat before I get into what I think is the decline of melody, especially in popular music, but also in contemporary music, contemporary, what we call contemporary classical music, and also film music. I'm not a connoisseur when it comes to film music, but I can definitely tell the difference between theme and ambience, as I have talked about before on my Star Wars score. So we will get into some other concrete examples where I'm going with this. So, all right. Welcome, Brian. Thank you for coming on board. Since I'm off for Memorial Day, I might as well join in the stream. It may be the only one I can catch for a while. Yeah, I understood that you were working a little bit later. And actually, for the longest time, live streams are fun. Live streams are fun to just tune in and chat. I used to think, well, live streams, it's already recorded, after the stream, so I can catch it after the fact. But there's something about live that's actually not just doing it, but just being on. That's quite enjoyable, kind of addicting in a way. But thank you for taking the time. I hope this stream is insightful and educational. And it looks like we have a little bit of an exchange between Brian and Daniel. And Dr. Y. I'm so glad you changed that name. It's clear and very, very happy to see you. Hello. Hello to you. And Melissa Harris. Hello. Hello. And it looks like we've got some exchange. Wait. Oh, Nanette, hey. I meant to click on Wolf 10 Media, but the chat kept going up. So 11 people, wow, that's a lot for me. So the pressure is on. So Wolf 10 Media, hello. And yes, thank you. Thank you for using that wonderful euphemism. I appreciate that. And hit them likes. And we've got Agent Boomer. How are you doing? And I do see, I see a very special guest on today, and his name is Big Al. And I should do this before I forget, because I'm afraid I'm going to forget. But he has a special day coming. It comes tomorrow. So if you don't mind, I would like to honor your day a little bit early. All right. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear sweet Al. Happy birthday to you. So I hope you have a wonderful birthday tomorrow. And I should see you live, I think. Tomorrow is office hours, I think. So hopefully you're going to spend a really lovely day tomorrow. And yeah, happy birthday. Honored to get to know you. We've got an active chat today, guys. I hope I don't skip a lot of people. Oh, let's see. Daniel Herrin says, you said it was inspired by the Inside the Score. Do you know Oscar? Oh my goodness. Huh. I'm not getting the connection. Inside the Scores. Oh, my videos were inspired by his 2 videos on melody, so maybe it's a video I haven't seen. Actually, I haven't seen a lot of his videos. But I was looking, researching the topic, and I think I will subscribe to him because he looks like he has a lot of great content for me and you, of course, as musicians and music lovers. So thank you. I will. Yeah, if that's the title, no, it wasn't inspired by that. It was inspired by the death of melody. So my thumbnail said the decline of melody. I didn't really want to take his idea, although I do agree with him that there actually has been a slow decline of melody for pretty much all of 20th century Western classical music. And actually, you might be able to point some things out too. All right, some exchange. Hey, Troy. Yes, why not? 11, I'm so honored. Now it's 13, so 13 likes, guys. Do it. Hey, Mr. Matchstick. Nice to see you. And, oh, hey, it is Mr. Logan. Hi. Happy Memorial Day. I hope you are doing well yourself. Thank you. Good to see you. Let's see. We've got just a few more minutes on the chat, and then I'll pull up my notes. This will be a kind of a broad overview of what I am thinking, hopefully with some concrete examples. Yeah, you're welcome. You are welcome. You deserve it. You know, I love double digits. It just two of the same numbers together, it looks good. So yeah. His name is Oscar from that's his name. Okay, got it. Just graduated from Yale with a master's in music. Okay, cool. Thanks for clarifying that. Yeah, I know these people's YouTube names, but I don't know their first names. Oh, right. Oh, thank you. Gotta head out for a bit to get to my stopping point in my book. Oh, absolutely. Reading or writing, I hope, whatever the case may be. I gotta catch up on my Thrawn trilogy reading as per usual. Yeah. Actually, Wolf 10 Media, happy birthday to you. Oh, should I sing for you too? Oh, yeah. So Friday was pretty close. Should I do that for you too? Yeah, it's my number as well. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Wolf 10 Media. Happy birthday to you. I hope you can hear that okay. I think StreamYard filters out some of the frequencies. Yeah, I lived to be 33. It's true. All right, looks like we have a bit of exchange. Looks like we got a good crowd going. So I will go ahead and pull up my notes and let's talk about melody. And if you guys have any questions or comments or input, feedback from maybe what you've experienced or what you've noticed as far as patterns and different things like that, we're going to be talking about melody, the decline of melody, and why we need to bring it back. And so here we go. I have some notes, and it's let's make sure I have my oh yeah, dang. I gotta get in the habit of pulling my comments off while I pull up my notes. There you go. Yeah, don't brag, Dr. Y, still in your 20s. I know a lot of people. Owen Lister's in his 20s. I'm sure a lot of you guys are in your 20s. I was excited to be 30. I'm still pumped being in my 30s. It's been great. So anyway, let's talk about the decline of melody. Why melody has gone out of style. And so here's just a bit of an overview, and I'm going to begin with the question, or really the statement: we don't hear enough melody in contemporary classical or in popular music these days. And why is that? And to get to where I'm going with this, I actually do want to provide a little, excuse me, a little bit of indigestion there, a little bit of history with 20th century music, or what we can also call contemporary classical music. I actually call it contemporary music. It's a little bit of modern music, contemporary, or contemporary classical. Now, just like in science fiction, contemporary classical music, and actually before I start with my notes, I will get into a little bit of popular music, but not as much as contemporary classical music because I was a music composition student. This is just what I have learned, what I've experienced as a performer, musician, and as a composer, or just as a concert goer. So contemporary classical music, to get to this understanding of the decline of melody, we have to actually know what contemporary classical music really, for the most case in Western music, what that was about. Now, like science fiction, it has many components. It has many categories. You can have 20 plus categories fit under the umbrella of science fiction. It's the same way with contemporary classical music. To start out, we've got, and none of these that I'm saying are in chronological order, but kind of just it spans the gamut of 20th century. Now, we can start out with atonality. So atonality, when you hear or see the letter A in front of a word, that means essentially without tonality, without a key center, without the tonic dominant relationship that we hear in harmony. So when I say key center, do, mi, sol, mi, do, it's away from that center where it can be a note, what I call foreign to the key. It's not part of the diatonic scale. There's also post-tonality, which is kind of like atonality. From what I was taught, it's atonality with new approaches, especially in the time of World War II and getting into the 1950s. We've also got modalities. So if you have a scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. I don't warm up, just warning you. So that's the diatonic scale. Do, and this is the arpeggio, do, mi, sol, mi, do. You have modality, which actually lowers certain degrees in that scale. So Phrygian, for instance, would be, I actually won't do the solfege because I don't know it, but I'll just hum it. Da, 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 da. So that second degree, da, da, lowers by 1/2 step. Da, 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 da. It adds a lot more color and flavor to it. So modality, kind of going away from that diatonic scale. By the way, guys, if you say this is way too over your head, let me know. I always check that with my students. Another approach to 20th century music composition was serialism, and that, as the name implies, everything is serialized. And I'll explain a little bit more in detail a little bit later, where you have every note of the chromatic scale be equal in function and prominence. Actually, there really is no prominence, and I'll get into that a little bit later. We've also got experimentalism, going away from harmony, rhythm, where things have temporal value that we understand to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, taking rhythm away. That's just an example of experimentalism, where we really try to branch out as far. And I was taught, in Seattle, to go really to the extremes of, traditional instrumental technique, traditional violin technique versus contemporary extended technique on the violin. And maybe, when I stream through YouTube from OBS, maybe I can show you. I actually would like to talk about traditional and extended contemporary technique and the difference there. We've also got minimalism, where you have this key musical idea that spans for 10 to 20 minutes, and there's not much variance. There's a little bit of change. There's a little bit of evolution, or maybe a dynamic change over the course of a very long time. So you actually, sometimes the change, the evolution can actually be imperceptible. So minimalism there. Neoclassicism is kind of approaching classical music with new color. Stravinsky was very popular with this. Also folk music, and not folk music as we know it to be, folk rock music as we hear in popular music, but folk music in that composers, 20th century composers, Bartok, for instance, Ligeti, Stravinsky, these guys approached new ways to composing music that was based on folk music of their homeland. We've also got spectralism, where you actually take a pitch, or actually not a pitch, I want to be very specific, a tone color of an instrument, a fundamental range of the harmonic series, the overtone series of a clarinet or a piano, and really working with the frequencies that make up one fundamental frequency, not fundamental, but one frequency that you actually hear as part, as a listener, if you hear like a low F on the clarinet, well, actually, it's not just F you're hearing. It's not just a sine tone. It's just all these complexities, all these frequencies that go into making that reedy low F sound on a clarinet. So there was a little bit of that where it had really no need for rhythm, no need for traditional harmony, certainly no need for melody. And I actually looked at this term. This is the first time I've seen this term for contemporary classical music history, but it's called, I saw it, it was called new complexity. I'm gonna have to refer back to that because I wasn't taught that actual term. But Brian Ferneyhough, and I'll get to typing these composers' names soon, but Brian Ferneyhough of Stony Brook, New York, especially in the 70s, he worked with score that was incredibly demanding of performers, not just for technique, but also to actually visually interpret it and apply it to your instrument. It's a lot of his stuff is near impossible, and that actually is the point. So with something like that, melody isn't actually a prominent feature. It isn't necessary for these different approaches. So those are some of the genres that is really begins at the very start of the 20th century and expands all the way into the 21st century. And even though these approaches are practiced in academia and all these places, maybe venues around the university setting or venues that support new music, even though people still approach these kinds of ideas in terms of the music industry, no, this is very specific. These are very specific composition approaches. I have one, I could probably find it too. And you won't hear 12-tone dubstep. And I've actually done 12-tone dubstep for a class. It was like 51. No, it was about 59 seconds of 12-tone dubstep. So it's been done before. But anyway, I will move on. So two main motives for composing this kind of new music, where it has expanded, and has come from the classical music, the Western classical music of the 1800s, getting out of Baroque, out of classical, out of the Romantic, into the late Romantic Impressionistic period of the late 1800s. There were two main motives, I think. This is a supposition, but I think this to be true. Two main motives for composing this new kind of music, and this does eventually get into melody, I promise. The first reason is the first motive for expanding on this was that very need to expand on what has come before. So if you take the example of Romantic music or Romanticism, this is set approximately between the 1830s and the 1880s. Now, there was a lot of socio-political upheaval happening around that time, especially in places like Italy. But all in all, even with the different, with the evolution of political events happening at the time, depending on the composer, depending on the medium, maybe with opera, for instance, depending on the nationality, Romanticism or Romantic music is a specific setting, lots of different colors, but it is a specific way of writing, as different and as diverse as these composers were. Liszt, from Brahms to Verdi to Wagner, and getting into the 1890s, it's still set in a very specific period in music history. So it's natural for composers getting into the 20th century to want to compose music that reflects their time, to reflect the time in which the composer lives. And it's also natural to compose music as a reflection or even as a response to what was historically changing. So that's the first motive. You want to expand on it, but it's also a response to political and historic events. And now, speaking of political, now this is not a political channel, by the way. I'm just talking about this regarding music. The second motive, I think, is a very important one, and it was a response to major political world events: World War I, the rise and regime of Stalin, the Third Reich, these were heavy responses, heavy reactions. Composers and artists all over were heavily responding to these catastrophic events and to these totalitarian and communistic regimes. I'm going to actually touch on one composer in particular. He's one of many. You know, I probably could do a series on this, but that's not my point. We're talking about melody, but it is getting into this. And this composer was Arnold Schoenberg. Now, Arnold Schoenberg wrote neoclassical music. He knew the traditional ways of composition writing, and really into, I think, getting into 1900, right at the start of the 1900s, he started working with other technique and also a school of thought. He kind of branched away from that traditional harmonic writing, even as complicated as harmony was for the Romantic and late Romantic period. He actually had a school of thought called, or he started something called the Second Viennese School, with mainly his two students, Alban Berg and Webern. Wait, oh no, I think I got the first names confused. Just remember Berg and Webern. And this Second Viennese School lasted approximately 1903 to 1925. Why I mention those dates is that it was evolving. The mode of composition writing, the mode of classical composition writing was evolving at the crux, at the time of World War I, where the whole world was, of course, shaken by these events. So at the start of the century, Schoenberg, and if you want me to write his names down in the chat, when I get back to the chat, let me know. At the start of the century, he introduced this late Romantic concept of music pulling away from tonality. When I say tonality, think pitch centricity or key, you know, do, mi, sol, mi, do, re, fa, sol, la, sol, fa, do, re. If I mess up on my solfege, I'm sorry. I haven't done solfege in a long time. So pulling away from that, you're using chromatics and kind of modal ideas that aren't really centered on that key, on that tonic do. It's not centered on that do. So music eventually had no tonal center, meaning music wasn't really adhering to a specific key. He also introduced ideas, unconventional ideas. His signature work, Pierre Lunaire, written in 1912, just of course before World War I, introduces an unconventional style of singing called Sprechstimme, which I'd be happy to type that in the chat too. Sprechstimme is a blend of speaking and singing. Now, you probably, I will type in the, why don't I do that right now? So you can look, because actually I tried practicing this example, and Pierre Lunaire. It's pronounced Pierre Lunaire. I've heard it pronounced Pierre Lunaire. I think it's Pierre Lunaire by Schoenberg. 1912. And a lot of sopranos sing this. It's actually a very, very popular piece. It's about this mad clown who tries to rub off moonlight. He sees moonlight on his shirt, and he tries to, you know, rub it off. And I think there's at least an imaginary decapitating scene. I mean, he's just this clown that is kind of mad, but the clown is personified by a soprano, and she sings a little bit like song voice, or I can't do it. I'm not a vocalist, but you get the idea where it's between spoken and song. So it actually really does enhance the story and also the poetry there, that kind of lyric style of writing. Now it's really into 1923. 1923 is when he expands on not just pulling away from the tonal center, or really altogether. He introduces serialism, also known as 12-tone technique. Now 12-tone technique is incorporating is using all 12 tones of the chromatic scale. So the diatonic scale comes in 7 degrees plus the top octave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like that. So 7 degrees to get to the higher octave. With the chromatic scale, if I can do it, again, I can do it better on violin. With the chromatic scale, you have 12 tones before you get to that higher octave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then you're back to do, but they don't do do anymore. Now, the point of this 12-tone technique is that every note of the chromatic scale, all 12 notes, are equal in function and prominence, meaning that one note in that scale does not repeat itself until all other notes have been played. Now, when you put equality in the mix, when you make every note equal in the chromatic scale, you lose completely that sense of tonality. You lose that tonal root that we call tonic or the key, and you completely eradicate consonance and dissonance, rise and fall, build and tension, and climax and resolution. You actually lose tonally, you lose that tonal syntax. People say 12-tone music is dissonant. I actually disagree. Now, this is just my own philosophy, but dissonance is not dissonance without consonance. You have to have that dichotomy for dissonance to be there, to be present. You have to have consonance. So consonance meaning what is euphonious, what sounds mathematically pleasing to the ear. Sol, do's, do, sol, do. Oh, I think the tritone is do, fi, do, fi. So tritone is kind of a crunchy interval. You also have do, re, do, of course, which is Jaws. So you do lose rise and fall, consonance and dissonance, tension and release when you make every pitch equal. As far as tonal, this is all tonality, not even getting into rhythm and all that. So the reason why I spent some time on Schoenberg is because he's one of many, many, many great composers that did things that expanded on and even moved away from what had come before. What was traditional harmony? What was traditional counterpoint? What was traditional melody? And actually, I want to be careful when I say traditional melody, because I actually do believe melody is what it was before, in Bach's time, Vivaldi's time, Brahms' time. I hear a lot of composers, I've heard composers say, maybe not a lot of composers, but I have heard a few times that when they say melody, they'll try to say it in a way, melody of a traditional sense. And I'm like, no, melody is melody, as it has been since the dawn of Western music. So, and I'm pretty firm on that. Now, as far as the construction of melody, I was thinking about for my live stream, or maybe next week, talk to you about the basic technicalities of what makes a melody. If you guys want some demonstrations on maybe a MIDI instrument, I could work in Logic Pro. I'll try to, I would stream on through OBS, through YouTube. So let me know if you guys actually want concrete examples of what makes a good melody, what would construct, compose a good melody. So let me take a break from this. I will get to my other notes. It's not too long, but did that make sense, that overview of contemporary classical music and the branching away from traditional melody? Because also what was also not removed or replaced, but moved away from was also things like rhythm, temporal relationships, note value, harmony, in terms of your that Roman numeral analysis that you see with Bach, that you see with Brahms, that you see with Wagner, and all of that. So hopefully this was an overview. I'm trying to recollect the knowledge I had like 8 or 9 years ago when I was an undergrad. Yeah, 9 years ago this last March. Whew. Man, how time does fly. So I'll get back to my notes and talk about melody a little bit. Hey, I think I see, oh yeah, man, hello. I know this isn't in order. Good to see you, Owen. Yeah, good to see you. So let's see what people have been saying. All right. Okay, DRY, I want to actually tell you something. I skipped 29. I was not mentally 29. When I turned 29, I thought I was 30. I was anticipating 30. 29 actually was a rough year for me anyway. But I didn't think about 29. I definitely will think about 39. It's like I'm holding on to 39. Agent Boomer, I blame radio station for the state of music today. I want to be surprised. You know, it is a bit of a hegemon, the music industry, and I like the times we're living in, because you've got these platforms, even the social media platforms, but also music platforms, and people, you know, startups, for instance, really trying to look out for the musician and the independent artist. So, you know, yeah, radio is, I mean, the massive hegemon of the industry and the radio stations that in that way, they won't help the independent artists. It's all algorithm, it's all numbers, it's all what makes the most money. Yeah, and then Brian agrees. All right, I see Mr. Vax. And hello. And by the way, am I pronouncing your name correctly, Vax? It's good to see you. It's about music. You know, I did a stint about Star Wars, and Star Wars is coming up in a couple weeks too. So thanks for. I'm actually talking about music. Well, I'm talking about music when I talk about Star Wars. So yeah, very good. Yes, well, you're first in my heart, but you were not first. You were the third first. You guys should all just, in one fell swoop, just say first. All right. Oh, thank you, Wolf 10 Media. Thank you. I need to take voice lessons. You know, Craig, I don't know if you saw Craig. He's my colleague, but he's a vocal coach. He's booked though. He probably teaches like 80 hours a week. Now, think about that. That's 160 students a week. I wouldn't be surprised, but he loves teaching though. I'm a teacher of sorts, and I do think teaching has a role in my life. But man, if I could just compose and perform, I would do it. All right. Yeah, Dadaism. I actually, Vax, I have to look back into that. And that Dadaism was really, I think if I remember correctly, Dadaism wasn't Dadaism one of the responses to the First World War. I think it was that early. So I would actually like to talk about Dadaism and avant-garde and their role in music. But you know, we've had discussions. There are philosophical implications with Dadaism as well, but I'd actually have to look into that more. It's been 10 years since I've looked at this kind of stuff. Brian, I know this was for Aged Boomer. I can't stand today's pop music. It gets on my nerves. I do want to talk about that. So hopefully we'll lead in. This is going to be general. I just want to give you guys kind of a broad scope on what's happening. Yes. Yeah, gosh, it's been years since I've looked at that book. There's a great book that explores 20th century music titled The Rest is I could read. Titled The Rest is Noise by Alex Ross. Thank you for I can't even say his name right. Alex Ross. I think I'm having a stutter right now. You guys could read it. Alex Ross. Okay, there we go. I think, well, at least I performed Happy Birthday to you guys, okay? Yeah. Paladin Demo, hello. Kill the metal will live on. You know, metal, I gotta get into more metal. I like a lot of the, probably not so heavy metal, but I like that dark gothic stuff. It goes back to the Baroque days, man. Metal is really, I sound like a metalhead. You know, from what I've heard, especially with the use of the electric guitar is a melodious instrument. It's a melodic instrument like the violin is. And so you can really work with some melodic textures there. I do like a lot of that stuff. I think Daniel's talking about some dating, as long as you keep it appropriate. So just keep it appropriate, Daniel. Sound Engraver, we won't hold the dubstep thing against you. It's only been one time. I did it. I can't remember if I've said this on the stream, but yeah, we had a master's assignment for our theory, our master students. Most of them voice and music education majors who hated theory, and he had us do this technique, a very interesting technique, and I can't even remember what it was. I don't have the original documents for it, but I constructed a 59-second, 1-minute dubstep, and if I can, I won't put it through StreamYard, but if I'm going through YouTube and OBS, if I find it, I'll show you guys. It's yeah, I think I called it Sideboard Gone Mental. I'm sure I've mentioned this on the stream. It sounds familiar in my memory. Oh, just for a little bit of disclosure, guys. Just because I follow Professor Geek, please don't assume I'm an expert on comics. I've seen some comics notes. Paladin Demo says, flag on the play. World War I ended in 1918. I think I said that right. World War II was 1939. The events you described was 25s and 30s. Events or musical approaches? See, I can't remember. Yeah, these are general dates. What was happening, this cultural shift with terms of writing music and that Western classical sense, much more, bleeding into different events. Of course. So forgive me, but every time you go into Do Re Mi's, I think of Sound of Music. Well, why not? It's a good song. And Père Lunaire here by Schoenberg, 1912. Don't ask me to sing Sound of Music. Don't ask me to sing anything musical related. I'll sing Disney songs like Baby Mine if you want, but I'd actually have to pull the lyrics up for Baby Mine. And I don't want Al to cry before his birthday. And I wouldn't blame him. It's a sad song. You guys are active. This is great. I'm just any comments to me, guys? Just say Sound Engraver, please, because oh, there's a Sound Engraver. Brian says, I'll take Instruments of Destruction from Transformers animated film over any of today's music. I'd actually have to see what that was. I was thinking, guys, I don't know why I'm mentioning this, because it's just a thought. I was thinking of like spending, it would be a short live stream, like short for me, 50 to 60 minutes of me listening to music and responding. But it would be like how Al and Troy have the rewatch. I can't put music on without getting really penalized for that. So I was thinking about finding a way where I could put a link in the chat, and then we all listen, and then I would get my first impressions. So like I would do 5 recommendations as long as it's appropriate, right? And so if you guys had something like, oh, do this song that I've never heard before, I'm like, okay, here's my impression. As as a composer and as a professional musician and also as a music teacher, what my impressions would be, and all of that. If that's something you'd be interested in, that'd probably be like a 30-minute to 50-minute thing on a Saturday, something fun. Good night, guys. Sound Engraver. I didn't know there was an Alex Ross involved in music. I only knew the comic book artist Alex Ross. Well, Alex is a pretty common first name, and Ross is a pretty common American last name. I think it's American, maybe English. I don't know. Yeah. What are you asking me to do, Wolf10 Media? Then sing that one song from Sleeping Beauty for Al. I mean, the only one I know is the famous Tchaikovsky melody. Actually, I don't mind singing in front of you, albeit the untrained, not warmed up voice, but that's actually a very good idea for melodies. So, so sing this one for Al. Let's see. So this is a good melody. This is wonderfully constructed. I know you, I thought of you once upon a dream. And I can't remember the rest of the lyrics. Beautiful. Tchaikovsky. I mean, Tchaikovsky was, he's as far as melody and tunes and all that good stuff. Tchaikovsky. You guys, look him up. I'm actually going to use him. Well, don't look him up now because you're on my live stream. Tchaikovsky, I mean, just look at his, Swan Lake, his symphonies, Nutcracker. I mean, this man was legitimate when it came to melody. And in fact, I might use one of his pieces as an example. It was on the Inside the Score video as well. Let's see. Well, thank you, Al. Right about her dates, I know. Wait, I was there, so I know. That's not true. You weren't there for the First World War. Let's see. I switched up my music a bit for The Last Command. Switched to Vietnam War mixes for Chapter 16. Interesting. And when it was Han's name flashback, non-flashback name. No spoilers, guys. I haven't read the chapters yet. And actually, if I don't catch up on my reading, I'll probably miss the live stream. I hope to catch up on my reading before then. I usually just want to stick around for the live chat. But this is the last installment I haven't read before, so I got to catch up on my reading. If you don't see me on chat, it's because I haven't caught up on my reading. But I think the prof said it was shorter, so I could get it down in 2.5 hours. Well, welcome back, Mr. Matchstick. Oh, are you talking about the Disney version? Yeah, it's good stuff. Oh, it's dark stuff. Whew. I mean, the word hell, man, is in Disney. Very scary stuff. And we'll, yeah. I do hope into the summer. I think as far as rewatches, I think Al has the schedule set up until beginning of July. Well, I guess it's not too far from now. But hopefully into the summer, we'll do some Fantasia. All right, so let's actually talk a little bit more about what I have in mind, for notes and, an overview and all that good stuff. Just some thoughts I had writing these down today. So, we're talking about Schoenberg, how he was one of many composers, getting into the 1900s, getting into the crux, just the climax, all of it. with World War I and the Russian composers and those close to Russia, dealing with Stalin, and I won't use his full name because I might get dinged for that too. But the rise and the really evil regimes happening, Third Reich, all of that good stuff. It's not good at all. I'm just used to saying all that good stuff. But the point is, 20th century had a lot going on around the world, and least of all the Western part of the world. And I think concerning melody, I should say, one thing I believe that has caused melody to take on a less important role is history. Now, I don't know if this is a leading factor. I would say this could be a contributing factor. But melody, in the times of these totalitarian and communistic regimes, melody actually had a naturally pretty bad association in 20th century history, in that composers in their homelands that had been overtaken by totalitarianism and communism, these composers and these artists and these musicians, they were expected to write and perform for the state. Music for the state is specifically nationalistic, as far as the regime's perspective and what these leaders wanted, these wicked leaders wanted. It was either nationalistic or it contributed to a leader of that time. So when you think of something that is bombastic and militant and nationalistic, the first thing that comes to my mind is an anthem. Now, this example is not comparing Stalin to the American anthem or the British anthem. I'm not saying that, but these anthems, very, very easy to sing and very easy to sing in a massive group that would honor a dictator. And it's, what is an anthem? It's a melody with text or text with a melody. Now, unfortunately, these wicked leaders loved and supported traditional harmony and traditional melody. The rise of the Third Reich went back to tonal ideas and musical ideas of Richard Wagner. And so unfortunately, melody in terms of socio-political happenings and events, unfortunately, it was used for very terrible things. And so there was a natural response of the composers. They had to write for the state, or they would be penalized, whether it's a shortage of rations or getting arrested or maybe even execution. I remember reading in a concert program when I went to the Raleigh Symphony, that Ligeti, I think it was, Ligeti, Hungarian, I think he is. I'll have to look at that. Correct me. I know some of you music people, you're out there. Ligeti was Hungarian, right? I have to double check. But he couldn't write dissonant harmony without fear of being arrested. These composers actually had to escape. They were refugees to France, to England, to America. They had to escape their homelands because they could not experiment with their music. So this might be a sidebar, and please, this is not for a political discussion of current events or anything. Don't get political. This is just a thought I have, but I want to entertain this idea. Artists and musicians and composers, we have to be very careful when we talk about wanting the state to provide for us, because there are implications even here in a place like the United States. I would not encourage you to be supported by the state in terms of art, because you actually are, in some form or another, history has shown you would be required to do what the state wanted or what the government wanted. You wouldn't have the liberty as much. These composers certainly hadn't. They were put at risk if they experimented, if they did too much dissonance. Too much. There was like a threshold, like, you are not going to use these tones, you're not going to use these chords, you are going to do these specific chords for our state. It was a very, very serious thing, and these composers had to I mean, they had to go. They had to go to France and England and the United States. They could not live in their homeland because of these regimes. So all that to say is, and I'll look into very specific examples. Ligeti was one. I believe Stravinsky. I'd have to look. But I mean, these composers were just bombarded with terrible things happening, and they could not experiment under penalty of arrest or worse. So, writing for the state for these regimes, melodic and traditional harmony. So there was a natural response, almost a defiance, if you will. No, we're going to experiment with our own chords and our own harmony and our own melody, or lack thereof. They wanted to push away from the traditional because of what was happening politically. So I'll look into more examples of that if you guys are interested. It's pretty unusual. I mean, like Olivier Messiaen with his quartet for the End of Time, happening as he was a prisoner of a German camp. I mean, just real serious stuff. Now, so all that to say is the Western composers, the German composers, the Russian, well, Russian's not really West, but we do celebrate the Russian composers. Russian composers are awesome. Rimsky-Korsakov, Mussorgsky, Tchaikovsky, Borodin, Rachmaninoff. I mean, these guys were so. I have a very an affinity toward the Russian composers, and we actually do link them with Western classical music of Italian composers, German composers, French composers, and English composers, and also American composers, especially as we get into the 20th century. Now, where is melody found? Where was melody found in these times in the 20th century? Well, getting into the 20th century, one example really was what was happening in the United States, ragtime and kind of that campfire. Well, ragtime's not campfire, but that social, the socializing in times of war, especially Civil War times. Ragtime came out of the Civil War, or it was composed during the Civil War, but ragtime was really popular. And ragtime was getting into, the 1900s, and especially getting into the 1910s, 1920s with jazz and big band music, people like Duke Ellington, American composers, symphonic composers like George Gershwin, big band, Benny Goodman, Django Reinhardt. I know I'm spanning the decades, probably by 40 or so years, but the American music, the Americana by Stephen Collins Foster with song, Percy Grainger with the Wind Ensemble. The United States really kept that melodic songwriting intact during this time. A lot of the breaking away from melody and traditional harmony really did happen, especially Germany. Germany was really that breaking away, but also France with Debussy and Ravel and their treatment of harmony. Stravinsky was in Paris a lot of the time in his life. I think Stravinsky went to the United States. I'd have to check. This music history, by the way, was not my forte. Music history was actually one of the tougher classes I had to take. So any music historians out there in the chat, don't be offended. This is all an overview. The ragtime, getting into jazz and big band, getting into the Americana, getting into the you're a grand old flag, you're a high flying flag, just kind of that American spirit stuck with the melody. It was all that. It was all intact. In during these really trying times the world was facing. We're also getting into out of the silent films and into the film music, and then this is also getting into popular music. Figures like Louis Armstrong, Frank Sinatra, getting into later, especially in 50s, 60s, with the kind of the sensationalism of rock music, with the Beatles and the Beach Boys, also country music, Hank Williams, Johnny Cash, Loretta Lynn. I mean, yeah, I know I'm kind of covering all of these, but this is 20th century music that I'm talking about. So melody was kept intact, but it really was kept intact more for that popular music. When it came to actual traditional writing for the symphony, we have a breaking point. There was a huge turning away from what had come before in the 1800s, 1700s, 1600s, and really into the medieval times with the Gregorian chant. So let's actually just take a break there and get back to my chat. I don't know where I left off, guys. Give me a song to sing while I look at this chat. Oh, there is a this is a good question. Oh, Wolftan Media. I'm curious, your favorite Disney villain song? Ooh. I mean, come on. I think that's a given. Be Prepared with Scar. It's the lyrics are wonderful. And they're really, oh, how does it start? I can't think of it right now. I can hear the melody in my head. Again, that's the importance of melody. You'll have to start, write the words down, and I'll sing it for you. But yeah, that's probably my favorite villain song. One reason, I will say this, one reason why Shan Yu was my favorite villain as a kid, one, he terrified me. Like Jafar, yeah, cool. Scar's kind of cool. They're definitely villains. But Shan Yu legitimately terrified me as a kid. And he never had a song, and I thought that was appropriate. Excuse me. I had chicken today, so I might have a little indigestion. Too much information? Probably. Yeah, I'm seeing these references to Disney, not Disney, I'm sorry, video games. Mega Man, Final Fantasy, yeah, good stuff. Yeah, yeah, that was yeah, she was pretty bold as a character because of her villain number and the importance of body language. I mean, that's for kids. That was really suggestive. That was, oh, dude, oh man, no, this is my favorite. This is my favorite. Yes. Oh, Be Prepared. Yes. I don't know The World's Greatest Criminal Mind, probably because it's a movie I haven't seen. Hellfire. Actually, as far as composition and weight and drama and drive, yes, I would say Be Prepared is it doesn't terrify me. He is malicious. Scar is malicious. He's out to kill his brother and his nephew, but it's still a little quirky. It's still kind of funny. Hellfire's terrifying. Yes, I agree, Brian. It seems that anything traditional gets a bum rap these days. Yeah, you know, we talk about it on Professor Geek's channel with comics and stories and the archetypes and the iconic heroes, but it's actually everywhere. I mean, this is actually why I kept going back to the Prof's channel, is because I saw it from a side of music. So even though I don't know pretty much anything about DC Comics, I'm very interested in hearing what these people have to say, because it's like, wow, this is the exact same treatment. You know, what's going on in Hollywood? I'll tell you this. Well, you guys hear, you know, Professor Geek and the Fourth Age and David Stewart and all these people, what they're talking about with what's going on with the writing in Hollywood is exactly, I'm not making this up, I'm not exaggerating, it's exactly what's happening in the academia with the liberal arts degrees, with visual art and with music. It's all encompassing. This is why I'm so glad to get to know you all, because it's like we're seeing this on a quite a massive scale. And so what I'm sharing, I'm glad you guys are interested in my live stream just to begin with, because it is music. It's nothing to do with comics. But what has happened in Western classical music in 20th century, that philosophy, that mindset to pull away from what has come before. And actually, I just watched the sequel trilogy this weekend, and that was the theme of Rise of Skywalker. Actually, it started in Force Awakens. That's going to be a couple weeks from now. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about writing because there's nothing well, there are a couple things I might say that might be new, but nothing about the writing that hasn't been mentioned before. But, the treatment of, Luke Skywalker, the treatment of Superman. I mean, this is the treatment of melody. This is the treatment of traditional musical storytelling. It's all the same. Might be from a different group of people with different sets of talent, but it's all the same. It's all from the same course and philosophy and historical patterns and all of that good stuff. That's not so good. All right, Aged Boomer says, if you do a song listening night, will it be a particular genre of music? No, I was actually thinking it's something more fun. If you guys kept it appropriate, what I would do is I would select the first 5 recommendations, and then we'd find a link. Maybe I'd find a link, or maybe the person would drop a link, and then I would copy and put it on another thing and say, hey guys, let's listen to it right now. And, spend the first, and I would comment on it. I remember Troy and Annette suggesting something, and I was listening to it, and I had, commentary running in my mind, just kind of this feedback. I was thinking and ruminating what was going on in the music, and I thought, well, maybe I should just do that live. Like, what do you think of this music? Now I have to be careful because I will be objective, as a composer and as a musician who this is my specialty. So, if you guys are open to ideas, what I like, what may fall short, things that may fall short, or things that could be improved upon, or all around really good things and strengths. So it would be random, as long as it's not too much, like not obscene language, profanity, or anything like that. So something I'm just throwing out there might do. Yeah, I probably won't mention Mr. Matchstick on how you quoted Stalin might get me dinged, but yeah, it was that environment. All right, I haven't seen Troy ask anything profound. It's a lot of dialogue. Oh yeah, Dr. Y, that's a good example. Most folks probably know classical music through Looney Tunes. Can I talk today? Looney Tunes. Yeah, Blue Danube. Yeah, absolutely. The Valkyrie by Wagner. Barber of Seville. Oh yeah. Looney Tunes did touch on a lot of the classics, in addition to writing music for that show. Yes. Oh, how could I forget him? Sorry. Yes. I didn't know he had a mysterious death until I looked him up. I was like, oh wow. Whoa. Skipped. My chat just skipped. I'm sorry, guys. Oh my gosh. Goodness gracious. All right. Professor Geek says, recommending one of my short stories by Irwin Shaw for everyone. The Green New deals with an artist suffering from communism, Nazism, and South American dictators and marriage. Is there a comparison between marriage and all the rest? That's okay. Yeah, great. Yeah, there's nothing like seeing it firsthand from a person who actually went through it, an artist who went through it. Do not ask for the state to provide for the artists. Don't ask for it, guys. Your liberties will be quelled. Your artistic liberties will be quelled. It's better to not make any money as an artist and have the liberty to express what you want. And I know, because I've only made $17 on my music this whole year. Oh, you know, man, I keep forgetting. Since if you guys wouldn't mind, I should promote myself. I just released another single. It's free. Name Your Price is another code word for free. And so my singles are free and my 2 albums are $3. So there you go. Another single for you. Some good comments here. Oh yeah, thank you. Okay, 1 second. Oh gosh, great lyrics. Okay, and this is good because I'm singing a melody. And this is the importance of melody. And then after this, probably I'll get back to my notes. Okay. I'll know, or is it I know? I know that your powers of retention are as wet as a warthog's backside. But thick as you are, pay attention. My words are a matter of pride. And then it goes into this kind of weird, yes, it's clear from your vacant expression. The lights aren't all on upstairs. But we're talking king secession, and even you can't be caught unaware. I mean, great lyrics. Yes. Man, Disney had its prime. That ship sailed. I know, because I saw The Rise of Skywalker yesterday. Yeah, well, good. Interestingly enough, in this quarantine, before the quarantine happened, I actually did stock up on beans and rice. I had like a whole month's worth of supply of food just in case. And so I had been getting through, beans and rice and vegetables and all of that. And yeah, I would buy fish because fish was available, and I eat fish mostly. I'm not pescatarian, strictly pescatarian, but I do eat more fish than other meat, like chicken. I hardly eat red meat unless I'm eating out, which is like once a year. But chicken was not available for the longest time. I would kind of look in the freezer shelves and I'm thinking, where's my chicken? And I'm like, oh, there's chicken. Let's get some chicken. So I've had chicken 2 days in a row, and it feels like I feel royal. Like it's nice. Oh yeah, you're kind of right. Owen Lister about Scar basically showing his, yeah. I don't know if I'm going to be dinged for saying his name, and I wish I shouldn't. I don't think we should be mentioning Adolf Hitler. I don't think we should. We should know this guy's history. We should know what he did, how he thought before he did all those things. So, anyway. All right. Well, Dr. Y, I don't know. You mean YT like YouTube? Peter Hollins, Jonathan Young, Carlene, and Charm. I don't know these people. I'm very bad with current artists. But outside the electronic music scene, I'm very bad with popular music artists. Let's see. At first, I would just end up sending. If I can't read today, I'd just end up sending you the longest metal songs I know offhand. Yeah, I mean, I like. I don't know if I could do like the aggressive screaming metal. The thing is, I like instrumental. I don't need the lyrics. I don't need the songs. I'm an instrumentalist through and through. Yeah, I think the chicken is slurring my speech. Logan says, there are always some exceptions. Strauss' last 4 songs was premiered in 1950 in Europe. There was also Ives and Cowell writing dissonant music in America early in the century too. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Ives especially. I had to listen to more Cowell. But that is true. Oh, yeah, I didn't mean to say that American composers were doing tonal stuff and melodic writing. You know, it wasn't all Aaron Copland. You know, Charles Ives with his signature works and all of that. Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's some metal songs that are Christian appropriate. There's probably Christian metal bands out there. Oh, interesting. Ooh, I suggest Inamanushif from the Children of Dune. Well, if I learn it, I'll sing it for you guys. Oh, let's see. The only reason artists support totalitarian regimes is because they expect to be kings under them. Unfortunately, I would not want to be paid to write music. I wouldn't want to be paid to write music that was required of me. By the way, it's actually, as a composer, it's very hard. I will say from experience, it's hard to write for a specific thing. If you've got, you know, producers, writers, filmmakers asking you to do something very specific, it's hard. It's very limiting. I'm not saying that that's bad work, but you do have a standard anyway. Not just for leaders and government and all that. It's hard to do. Yeah, I actually know what this means. Yeah, the ship sailed. It sank a fleet. Man, I will probably talk about a couple writing stuff with the sequel trilogy, things that I haven't seen mentioned on YouTube. I'm going to say this, and we'll get back to Melody. We will not talk about Star Wars tonight, except this one time. I don't care if it's science fantasy. I don't care if it's fantastical. I do not care. You don't do the metaphysical in Star Wars. It hasn't been established. That's all I'm saying. I'll save it for 2 weeks from now when I actually do a musical analysis of the score. But man, there were some. It's like the directors wanted to pull the wool over your eyes. It's like, oh, well, wait, this isn't science fiction. This is science fantasy. This is mysticism. This is kind of speculative. So we're going to do this. Even though it's never been established, for the 40 years that Star Wars has existed, we're going to introduce metaphysical stuff because we can. We can transmit matter through the Force. None of that was established. And I don't suspect it will, that kind of thing will return. I'm like, I'm not a fantasy writer. I know little to nothing about soft and hard magic systems, but I know enough to know when you establish rules, you adhere to them. Yeah. Well, you're welcome. I could already see that kind of green light from the fire and the geysers and all that. Owen Lister says, my personal favorite Disney song is You'll Be in My Heart from Tarzan. Yeah, I mean, who doesn't like Phil Collins? He's yeah, feels good. Feels good. My favorite good guy song, my favorite protagonist song is actually, or Disney song in general is, or one of my favorites, but really for the protagonist is Just Around the River Bend with Pocahontas. I love that. It's great lyrics. It's the way they write the melodies is quite that text painting is quite nice with the flowing river. So when she sings see if I can remember this online. What I love most about rivers is you can't step in the same river twice. The water's always changing, always flowing. But people, I guess, can't live like that. We all must pay a price. To be safe, we lose our chance of ever knowing. I love that line, to be safe, we lose our chance of ever knowing. And that really spoke to me as, actually probably not as a kid as much as a young adult, just to be able to do that and to look beyond that. You guys have great comments. I gotta get back to my notes. But we're talking about melody. And if you don't mind me singing more stuff. Let's see. Sabaton was my gateway into metal. They've got iconic instrumentals. Cool. I will try to refer back to this chat to remember. Doom soundtrack. You mean the video game? Is that like zombies and stuff or monsters? I don't know about that. Like I remember seeing a monster from that. It's like, oh, it's scary, but it's probably good. It's probably solid. Yeah. I mean, come on, like, oh, and the lyrics with this kind of ostinato harmony, like this chordal harmony that's really quite something that you would hear out of an organ. I know it. Oh wait, actually, what key did I sing it in first? If you guys are tired of me singing, I'll stop. If you guys are giving me these Disney lyrics. I know it sounds sordid, but you'll be rewarded when last I'm given my dues. And injustice deliciously squared. Come on. Wonderful writing. Man, Professor Geek is getting some attention in the chat. I'm kind of jealous. All right, I got to get back to my notes. DRY says, Peter Hollins and Jonathan Young sing covers of the movie and TV songs. Charm and Carlene sing fantasy story. Oh, the fandom-related songs. Yeah. I should look into that. Yeah. Thank you. The Last Stand. That sounds like a good title. Good enough to me. Oh, I thought you meant my singing. Don't hold back, sound Engraver. Shine with your writing talk. Yeah, actually, I'll talk about more. So I plan on doing the musical analysis maybe next week, but I wanted to actually, I'll leave the vote to you guys if you guys want an actual, a light lesson on composing a melody and what a good melody requires. And I would actually use an actual MIDI instrument to not just singing, maybe my violin, but probably just MIDI instruments, because I can see it's late and I don't want to disturb my neighbor. But if you guys want actual examples, like a small composition lesson on what makes a good melody, let me know, because I'm actually gonna get back into my notes, and it's not too much to expand on after this, but there isn't melody in a lot of popular music today. And I would love to show you what makes a good melody. Dude, that might be a little too much for me, man. Well, I don't know. Maybe I don't know what. See, you guys are naming the big names. I like go to the not so knowns, you know, the lesser knowns. But I don't have examples to give you. Oh man, there was a Star Wars comment, but this is not about Star Wars. This is about melody. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I try. Oh, there it is. Paladin Demo says the metaphysical of Star Wars is the Force. Well, no, not the way I'm saying. And the Force is not high magic. Martial arts, Kai abilities, and low magic at best. Really high magic. I.e. Force lightning. I can't read tonight, guys. No. That's not metaphysical. That treatment is not metaphysical. I'm talking about something that hasn't been established in the Force that we haven't seen. Matter transmitted, teleported, if you will, between time and space. Rey and Kylo Ren being able to see the backgrounds, or at least we see the backgrounds, what I think it's implied that they're seeing. Like, so if Kylo Ren's in a different location and Rey's in a different location, but they can each see the other's location and they can have a lightsaber fight in two completely different locations. Oh, guys, I gotta wait for a couple weeks. But that was never established. That's getting into the speculative. And yes, you can branch out accidentally. You can branch out into the speculative and the metaphysical. And when I say metaphysical in this sense, it's magic and fantasy introduced with the Force, as we're within the Force, that has not been established before. I haven't seen it, and maybe it's in the EU. But transmitting matter to another location and doing a lightsaber battle, it's a cool idea, and visually it looked great, but it wasn't established before. Oh, stop, guys. Stop enticing me with these Star Wars comments. All right. So Owen Lester says no Star Wars. There will be. I will let you know when I do Star Wars, and it won't be all the time. I will focus on melody. I just came off a whole weekend of watching the sequel trilogy for musical analysis. Yeah. Oh, and actually this week I should mention too that my sister called me while I was watching The Last Jedi. Then it was too late, and then she called me while I was watching the sequel trilogy. I said, "This must be important," and she said that Brian, her beau, proposed, so my sister is engaged. It was very nice. So I got to watch the sequel trilogy, and my sister got engaged. So it was a nice weekend for me. All right. Well, actually, before I read on more comments, this is great, you guys. Thank you for being so active. There's no live or light chat anymore. I'm past those days. But the thing is, I would never want to get to that viewer count where the chat scribbles up and you can't read it. Oh, I hope I never get to that point. I like this. I like this small community. But let me finish off my notes before I rant on about other things or sing Disney tunes. So just a couple more things. So we just to cap it off, where was melody found? It was actually found, from ragtime getting into the 50s and 60s, and of course popular music as we know it to be today. That's where melody was found. So to name the people I have on my notes, Louis Armstrong, Frank Sinatra, Johnny Cash, Loretta Lynn, Duke Ellington, George Gershwin of the 1920s and 30s, and all of that. So melody was intact, but really where it was lacking, or maybe even dismissed in contemporary classical music, especially Western, France, Germany, Italian, even Russian, apart from the political anthems. By the way, that's not the whole. It's not excluded. I'm not saying it was only political anthems, but it was the popular music that was really surfacing, that was really growing in popularity in France, in England, and of course in the United States, on top of the emergence of film music. So melody was still around. It's still around. And then, of course, we're having fun kind of talking about these Disney recommendations and singing Disney tunes. But, Disney music had, I wish I actually, guys, if you guys don't mind in the chat, say the songwriter. In fact, I watched a video of him just recently, and I can't remember, but not the composer for these different films, but the songwriter. Who was the songwriter for Be Prepared and Never Had a Friend Like Me and all those great numbers? I think there was one specific gentleman, and I'll recognize the name if you put it down, but I'm blanking on his name right now. So melody was around. But even in popular music, there is a decay. Well, not decay, actually. I think there is a decline. And I think it's happened mostly in popular music in the last 2 decades. And I have to say that one of the major contributing factors of this is electronic music. Now, you guys know I compose electronic music. I just put my link on, the Bandcamp link on the chat. I love electronic music. It is one of my deepest loves. It will be my pursuit for as long as I can see. And so I love electronic music. But electronic music, I think, really helped songwriters and music producers pull away from that traditional melody. One was, well, since its infancy in the 1950s, electronic music, also known at the time as computer music, electronic music has been the music to explore soundscapes and sonic atmospheres. This was actually reasonable. This was practical. In the 1950s and in the 60s, computer technology at that time was rudimentary. Not only that, it was very, very expensive. So why would you go about approaching melody and harmony when you can go to an acoustic instrument like the piano, or when you can go to a small chamber ensemble or even an orchestra? The processing power, the flexibility, it was very limited, and it was also very expensive. So people working in radio, Pierre Schaeffer, Stockhausen, even into the 70s, like John Chowning and all that, they were working with fairly rudimentary technology that just didn't have the flexibility. So if you wanted to write a melody, you would just hire a pianist or hire a vocalist. You didn't approach melody. I don't think there would have been a practical application besides, trying to work with the computers to sing Bicycle Built for Two. Who did it? Was it Chowning? Who was it? It's very interesting. If you guys know the movie 2001: Space Odyssey, where Hal he's being pulled apart, right, by Bowman, and he sings Daisy, 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 Daisy. I can't remember the lyrics. Da 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 da. I'm half crazy over my love for you. That was actually, I think it was part of the story, but it's actually part of music history in computer music, where they were learning the computer and the processing and the circuitry to generate a model of the sing-song Bicycle Built for Two. I can't remember who the composer was. This is embarrassing. I should know my computer music history. But yeah, in actual computer, in computer music, in the history of computer music, I think it was the 1960s. There was a computer that actually did Bicycle Built for Two when that kind of vocal simulation, or vocoder, I think it was vocoder, that simulated the human voice to sing Bicycle Built for Two. So there was a reference in that. Or maybe, I can't remember if there was an actual historical reference and 2001 actually paid homage to it, or if that paid homage to 2001. I can't remember. I'm getting that backwards. But the whole point of that little rant was, computer music really did explore the soundscapes and the weird textures and the ambience, because there really was no practical need at that time to look into doing this for melody and exploring algorithmic generative processes to producing music. Yeah, I mean, even up to now in 2020, it's been really about exploring tones and textures and ambience and atmospheres. It's remained that to be really the first priority. Sound design. It's actually sound design. It's not so much traditional music or melody or harmony, but it's actually sound design that took precedence over melody and harmony. I think I said that twice backwards. I blame the chicken. I do think computer music, for all its worth, for its flexibility, especially now in 2020, I really didn't latch on into that melodious writing, that writing of the traditional melody. And that's what I'm trying to do with my electronic music. When I first approached practicing electronic music, I wanted to produce the electronic music that my favorite artists were producing, but I kept going back to melody. And I think it's probably because I'm a violinist and that's a melodic instrument. I keep going back to melody. And I remember my dad and I had this conversation a few years back. He said, I think that's going to make your music separate from the rest, or maybe stand out from the rest, where a lot of my favorite artists, as much as I love them and as much as I love what they're doing, not a lot of melody, not a lot of composing melody on top of the ambience or on top of the harmony or the rhythm. So that's actually my approach in electronic music, is to bring that experimentalism as I had seen in the early 2000s and the 1990s, and maybe even all the way back to the 1950s, and exploring computer music and the history of computer music. But I'm thinking, I gotta add melody to it, whether it's the acoustic violin or just another instrument, maybe a MIDI instrument. If I'm talking too fast, let me know. I feel like I'm talking way too fast. So Inside the Score mentioned hooks. So Inside the Score, I posted on Twitter a couple videos of his first one a few weeks back, but this one as a follow-up video he had. Actually, I think this was in his first video on the death of melody. And he mentioned hooks, where these are bite-sized melodic gestures that are attractive and have the listener wanting more. Britney Spears did it. Taylor Swift is doing it now. It's just little bite-sized, and I could do maybe an example next week if you guys want me to do examples. But what these hooks do, they don't have to be more than 2 to 3 notes, or maybe 4 notes. They don't have to exceed a certain number. They're certainly not a complete melody. But these little hooks, what they do is they have these notes, these pitches that can actually, over time in sequence, even a repetitive kind of hypnotic sequence, you can actually emphasize them with changes in harmony, changes in bass, and changes in rhythm. So you actually, what this lends the composer to do, or the songwriter to do, is it has the composer and songwriter rely on rhythm and bass and harmony. It has them rely on those elements to carry the momentum. It doesn't rely on the melody to carry the momentum. It really, especially with popular music, people who are just quite famous now, Billie Eilish, she has her songs, really well-produced songs. I think it's her brother that does that. He's like in his 20s. I'm like, man, I'm not that talented. I was nowhere near that talented. I'm nowhere near that talented. But he's a very good producer. His post-production stuff is just A+ quality. He's like 25. It's not fair. But I'm attracted to the sounds he generates and the quality he has for those sounds. Her stuff is, without his production, I have to say her stuff is kind of boring. I've only listened to 3 songs, sorry. So any Billie Eilish fans out there, I'm sorry. But it's, so she'll, a lot of, it's not just her, it's just a lot of, Cardi B, all these pop artists, don't think I know the words, but you know, it has that kind of rhythm. Da 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 da. Now that sounds boring, right? It is. But what happens is there's actual pretty interesting shifty harmony and rhythm and bass, or some kind of sound design. I can't remember. I'm blanking on some of these pop artists' names, but they have very colorful sonic tapestries that get you engaged, that are a little bit they're attractive. They're like little oral pieces of candy, little sushi bites that get you wanting more. But that doesn't make up for the melody that has been replaced. It's not that any of these songs without melody aren't necessarily good or objectively good. They could be very good songs. I haven't listened to most of them. The point is, because you've got the electronic music now, because you've got that soundscape and the flexibility to do really cool colors and really cool textures, most songwriters and pop artists today are just relying on harmony, bass, and rhythm. They're not relying on melody at all. So if Taylor Swift has a set of lyrics, you know, she'll sing 2 notes over the span of 4 bars. 2 notes, 2 to 3 notes. There was this #1 hit by One Direction. I'm sorry, guys, I can't remember the song. It spanned 3 notes, 2 to 3 notes for the chorus. That's not a melody. That's not a melody. And so, you know, repeating 2 to 3 notes or 4 notes over the span, over the course of harmony and rhythm and bass and all that, can actually induce the listener. It actually is quite hypnotic. It's really well done. You know, horizontally, nothing changes, but vertically, with the chords stacked and progressing, that's what changes over time. So it's kind of like seeing a horizon or a skyline with different topography. So a different landscape for the same sky. It's the same sky, it's not changing, but you're just actually, you know, superimposing new landscape. That's kind of the effect that I think this kind of melodic writing is doing. So because of this, in recent years, and maybe this last decade, people in popular music they haven't relied on melody or what makes a melody. So, a couple more notes. What makes a melody? This will be very basic, very basic terms to use. Again, I'll put it to vote if you guys want me to expand on this for my next live stream with some actual concrete examples on what makes a good melody, how to compose good melody. Just let me know. Just a small composition lesson. But let's see what makes a melody. This is very short, I promise. I just feel like my speech is slurring. Not sure why. So anyway, what makes a melody? Contour. That's the first thing. Contour, the actual music line, that actual music shape. And not only is it a musical line, but it's a moving musical line. This is very important. We've got rises and falls. We've got tension and release. This is part of our syntax. This is part of language, and in that syntactical, the way I stress my words, the way I structure my sentences, the way I'm communicating to you. I want to do it as effectively as possible. Without contour, everything's more monotone. I can't do monotone. I tried practicing earlier today. I can't do it. I have to have nuance and inflection in my voice to keep you interested, to keep me interested. So that contour, that line, that moving musical line, the peaks and the troughs, as I like to call it. This is part of our natural world with the electromagnetic system, or not system, but that spectrum, where, you know, with frequencies, we've got frequencies, high frequencies, low frequencies, we've got slow moving frequencies, we've got, you know, radio technology, these long ranging waves with peaks and troughs. You know, we've got reflections and refractions of sounds. I mean, this is something we absorb on not just a daily basis, but like every fraction of a second. We're even though we're not aware of it, this is how we process our information. So it's quite natural to have, you know, rises and falls, tension and release, you know, a beginning, a middle, a conclusion inside an actual melody. So contour is the first thing. The second thing is the range, the dynamic range. So I think Cardi B was something like that, 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 that. It's just one pitch. There's no rise or fall. And it's like, I think there's like a little bit of a bass, and that was it. I just don't know how this makes millions of dollars, guys. But we need dynamic range, you know, so, you know, you can, I recommend when I first start with composition students, like the 3 I've had, I start with having them compose a melody that doesn't exceed an octave. So do, mi, sol, mi, do. So, I mean, something like do, sol, la, sol, mi, fa, re, do, ti, do, la, ti, sol, la. You know, something like that, where you can go between the different notes, but it's still inside that octave. But you know, it's very interesting. Craig, the vocal teacher on my stream a few weeks back, he said that the human range, I mean, we're actually capable of 3 octaves. I didn't know that. I can go from maybe an F or an E if I warm up to probably an a couple octaves above middle C. I'm really more comfortable right at G. So, you know, 2 octaves, 2.5. I don't think I could do 3. He'd have to show me some vocal technique to do that. But the point is, we are capable. Even people who aren't singers or not even musicians or have not had a music lesson are capable of exceeding the octave. Now, I don't know if I want to exceed the octave. Well, I'll go lower. Do, sol, do, mi, sol, do, re, do, mi, do. I don't know what StreamYard is picking up there, but so I exceeded the octave. I went a 5th below middle C, and I went a 3rd above the C, an octave higher. So you can exceed the range, and that's that idea of dynamic range, where the melody should go at different points within the octave, but maybe expand the octave in a very smooth way. So yes, and now I should say exceed the octave, not expand. Now the intervallic relationships are important. So we've got contour, and you know, it consists of rising and falling, the dynamic range. Also intervallic relationships between skips and steps. So do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Those are little steps in the diatonic scale. Do, mi, sol, mi, do. Those are skips. Those are intervallic skips. And so you can do a mix of both, as I had demonstrated. So do, sol, I'm going up a 5th and going up to sol, la, which is a step. Fa, sol, skip to step. Mi, fa, re, do. So it's yeah, I think it was skip to step again to conclude. So it does have that those constant intervallic relationships as well. There needs to be that kind of motion and direction. Motion is the next thing. Motion is key in melody. It has to have a sense of progression that has a conclusion. When you begin a sentence, the listener is going to expect that you end that sentence. This is totally syntactical. With whatever language you speak, we have syntax where we rely on emphasis and rhetoric and structure. This is also important in melody. So I think Tchaikovsky would be a really good example for this. So this is a melody, if I can remember it live. This is a melody from his 4th Symphony, 2nd movement. And kind of hear that if you can hear, I'd be curious to see if you guys what you guys are experiencing when you hear this melody. If you feel like it should continue, or if you feel like it should conclude. Da 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 dun da 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 bum ba. That's low. Da 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 dun da 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 bum. Da, da, da. Well, it actually does repeat. And it repeats the same but it actually does extend into another phrase. Da, da, dum, da, da, dum, da, dum, da, da, dum, da, da, dum, ba, dum. It's slow right now. Da, 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 da. I can't say da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. And so that's the first phrase, and then it gets into this B section, kind of a pull away from that A theme, that first statement. Bear with me. Da 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 da. And then it gets into more of that. And actually, it's the strings pulling. It's beautiful. Starts with the oboe, and then the strings pull that kind of B theme. So there's movement. There's progression. You want a sense of cadence, the end of a phrase, the end of a clause in a sentence, but you also want a conclusion. That's so key in melody. It has to have motion. The other thing too, and this is what Inside the Score touched on. He touched on empathy, which I think is very important. A melody includes empathy in the way that it's telling a story. It's setting a narrative. Now, this could be actually programmatic in that the music is supporting an actual story or a film, or it could be introspective. You could be creating a narrative. Maybe you're just daydreaming while you're listening to a melody. Maybe it's the melody's helping you build a world in your imagination. So it is conveying a story, a push of some kind that is emotional, that is expressive. And lastly, I added this, expression and language. The way we use our language to get people to listen, it's the same way with melodic writing. It's the syntactical structures of our language, of how we use rhetoric, of how we use words, of how we communicate. So, a sentence has a clause, it's followed by another clause with a conclusion, or maybe it's followed by another clause before a conclusion. So there are parallels between the actual language that we know to communicate with one another and melody. There are parallels. So those were my notes. I hope some of that made sense. So that was my overview of the decline of melody and why it is going out of style. I think it's mainly because, especially with popular music in what they have, sound libraries and all the technology, they're finding, unfortunately, I think they're finding that they might not need melody in the traditional sense. But we do have songwriters like John Mayer, who is a very good songwriter who really does work with melody, and he works with poetry. So I think there will be a comeback. I think there should be a comeback, just because it is really one of the best ways to convey human expression in music. So those were my thoughts on melody. Hopefully it's not too much to handle. Any questions if you have? Man, coming on 2 hours. Okay, so I'm gonna try to read through these comments as fast as I can. I think we'll wrap it up probably at the 2 hour mark, maybe 2 hour and 10 mark. By the way, when I was doing my singing examples, I really don't know what StreamYard does with that. I think it filters out some of the frequencies. Okay, so I kept scrolling down and then it took me all the way down. Now I have to scroll back up. All right. Looks like some people are saying goodnight, so I'm sorry if I missed you. I'm actually going to sing Tchaikovsky. I'm just going to hum Tchaikovsky as I scroll up the comments. I'm probably going to sing a higher octave, higher key. Da 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 Oh, I see a question from Troy. I think it's his first one. I'm gonna click on it before I miss it. Troy says, I can tie Star Wars to melody. Melodies were a humanoid water-based species native to Yavin 8. Yeah, it's all you. It's all EU. Really? Is that true? I appreciate that. I should have warmed up. But the whole thing was, you know, I was going to sing for Al. Happy birthday for Al. That was my goal. And again, the importance of melody. We use melody for these memorable things. Happy birthday is a totally legitimate melody. It's got its rise. Da 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 da. It's like a clause of a sentence. Da 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 da. Other clause, and then the peak, the climax. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. So perfect application right there. Okay. Yeah, oh, and I don't think I want to battle those forces on Mars. That's scary stuff. Yeah, the thing is, I love science fiction, but I don't like horror. And I don't like the, like, I don't think you can pay me money to watch The Thing. So, like, if Big Al has a rewatch of The Thing, he's like, oh, Sound Engraver like science fiction. Not that kind of science fiction. I'm actually very picky with my science fiction. I must have said that before, but yeah. Oh, Melissa says, here's a song you should look at. Original Sin by Pandora's Box. It was used in the Shadow movie. Cool. Yeah, I think, Brian, if this is for me about the metaphysical stuff of Star Wars, yeah, it didn't save a person, but it didn't make sense. I will say, Rise of Skywalker was entertaining. The others weren't entertaining. Force Awakens was boring. Last Jedi, man, I saw it a second time. There were, yeah. I don't have hypertension. I was reacting strongly, a little too strongly, with Last Jedi. Rise of Skywalker is terribly written. Doesn't save Star Wars. People are like, oh, this is going to save Star Wars. No, no. It was a 2.5 hour lesson on what not to do when writing. But it was entertaining. As far as the aesthetics, beautiful. I like this. The thing is this. Well, no. I have so much to say, but I will save it for 2 weeks from now. So stay tuned. Yeah, you know, like I want to say it now, but no. We're coming on 2 hours, and I have to get into any comments that have to do with melody or songs. Sound Engraver, that's copyright infringement. What Ray and Kylo did is called astrotelepathy, a skill in Warhammer 40K to send messages across the galaxies psychically, which is a trained ability. Yeah, but this was just, I don't think it's copyright infringement. I don't know the laws of copyright, but I think anyone's free to do that, but just do it well. Just do it well. That's all. But I don't know anything about Warhammer 40K. That's how you say it, right? That's how you say it. Because it's Star Wars. That's why it's attracting you. It's Star Wars. I love Star Wars. I mean, when my sister made her announcement on the phone to me about her engagement with Brian, and Brian was there, I threw in Star Wars. I was like, oh, wait a sec, Brian, what time did you propose? And he's like, around 2 o'clock. I don't know. It's like, oh, okay. I was not watching Last Jedi at that time. Like, I was like, okay, no big event happened while I was watching Last Jedi. I was actually teaching a violin. I was teaching violin. So I was being productive while the event happened. That would be tragic, though, to have my sister being proposed to and me going through. I try not to react so strongly, but I saw Jake Skywalker the second time. The lines and the execution. This isn't Mark Hamill's fault, but the line and execution, total slap in the face of fans. Like in the movie, it's so self-deprecating. He's like, because I was a legend. It's like, yeah, Skywalker, you were a legend. You are a legend. You're still a legend. You are Jake Skywalker in that film, some doppelganger of some kind. You can see I'm pretty passionate about this. Oh, cool. Sabaton performs songs about history ranging from ancient Spartans to World War II. That's a big range. Oh, thank you. Yes. Yes. I think he's going to be a fine brother-in-law. And I'm actually going to be his first sister-in-law because he only has brothers. And I was saying to him, I'm like, well, I hope I meet your expectations as a sister-in-law. Thank you, Wolftan Media. I appreciate that. And she's getting married kind of quickly. Like I'm not looking for this kind of thing for myself now, like this year. But she and he are engaged to be married pretty quickly. And I'm like, oh, 33. That's a nice number. That's a nice number to start a new life. It won't be 33 for me. Oh, Elton John. Oh, yeah, he did the Lion King songs. I'm thinking of the songwriter for Aladdin. Because yes. Thank you. Alan Menken. Yes. Thank you for that, guys. Brian says, what inspired you to compose electronic music? Oh my goodness. I'm sure I've mentioned it before. Well, actually, just a real short answer is my education at the University of Washington got me into new music, and I got into what my professors were doing and some sound experimentation they were doing with SuperCollider. I got into more of that in Milwaukee in Wisconsin, and then I got into just more of it's not mainstream I got into, but I got more into the eclectic kind of down-tempo artists that you see in UK and Greece and in Scandinavia and all that. So my love for academic electronic music, like John Chowning, Barry Truax, morphed more into the artists of the 90s, the 2000s, and actually what they're still doing today. So that's a short answer. But I actually have a video on my favorite electronic artists as well. Only Disney songwriter I know off the top of my head is Randy Newman. What songs did he write? I'd be curious. Yes, Sir Elton John does count, Brian. Sound Engraver. That's why I listen to 80s and 90s, 70s and 80s rock and metal music, because they have soul and character behind it. Yeah. Gentle Giant, Genesis, Dream Theater. Gotta throw in my Dream Theater. Oh man, I think Dream Theater had a live stream today, and I missed it. Today's Monday, darn. Acoustic Atmosphere. Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't promise a book, Paladin Demo. But if you want an analysis on the concept album, I'm happy to do it. I would have to read Journey to the Center of the Earth, though. That was one of his that I didn't read. I saw the old classic film. Didn't see the new one. I saw the old one. Yeah. Robert and Richard Sherman were the classic Disney songwriters back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Wow. Good. And Max Matthews. I'm not sure. Oh, that's not for me. But I'm not sure. Oh, that's cool to know. Now, I think he did pass on a while ago. I thought he passed on. I thought he passed before the release of Aladdin. Okay, it did inspire 2001. The robot HAL got its name from IBM with the letters all shifted. I did not know that. No way. That's cool. That is cool. So HAL got his name from IBM with the letters all shifted one place in the alphabet. I did not know that. Thank you for saying that. That's cool. That's really cool. What? Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That's all I know. I grew up with Power Rangers. I was a mad little kid. If I missed my Power Rangers, I'd be booking it from home, from the bus stop, or if I missed the bus, I'd be just running like all around town, getting to my home to watch Power Rangers. And if I missed the episode, man, that was it for me. I was in a bad mood the rest of the day. All right, so let's see. I'm trying to get through the chat before I close out. But, you guys are so active that I might have to close out, appropriately. This is why no, and I mean no modern music artist will ever hold a candle to Freddie Mercury. I'm having so much trouble with names tonight. I'll listen to Freddie Mercury. I have to. Billie Eilish. I didn't even know who that was until I heard a cover from the I'm the Bad Guy done by Cog is Dead. It's hypnotic. That's all I can say. And if that's what people want, that's what they want. But it's not gonna be timeless. But I haven't heard that one, so I could be wrong. It could be a masterpiece. I think you guys are you guys putting lyrics in the chat like Disney lyrics? Good night, Daniel. Thank you for sticking around this long. Thank you. Hopefully you found it insightful. Oh, let's see. All right. Oh, I'm trying to catch up on chat, guys. Maybe around 11:10 my time or 11:15. Close it off. Oh, Mr. Matchstick, I thank you, but I've got to apologize. I don't know anything about anime. I didn't grow up with anime. I saw some Sailor Moon cartoons once, but I couldn't give you anything on anime. I do apologize. I mean, Yeah, I would have to look before I invest my time in that. I'm sure it's really good stuff out there with good music and good sound design, but I don't know. Thank you for the invite though. It's just something I have not in the least, just haven't explored in the least. But thank you. I appreciate that. Finally, a question for me. Sound Engraver, what are your thoughts? This is Professor Geek, of course. What are your thoughts on instruments traditionally used for rhythm and harmony being used for melody? Like, oh, yeah, bass solo. Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know. I wrote for solo bass, and I have written for solo bassoon. I love bass. I really like the bass instrument, or the instrument that's the bass, upright bass. I have a theme in mind for my protagonist of my space opera, and it's a very dramatic theme. It's very melodic. Well, no, it's not melodious. It is a melody, but it's very somber and it's very slow. And I keep hearing a bass of some sort, or maybe an electronic version of bass. But I love bass. It's one of my favorite instruments. It's a heavy instrument, though. I can't imagine learning it at this time in my life. But I have composed for it, and I would compose for it. I would do it again. I love bass. Thank you, Nanette. Blake 7 and Red Dwarf. Yeah, if it's nothing like the thing. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. No, I don't know about that Paladin demo. Watching people die makes you so alive. No. I don't care how dark the science fiction is, I have got to have an element of hope. Just a shimmer of hope in my fiction. It could be dark, it could be absurd, but without that hope and without humanity, it's when people become killing machines or something like that, or monstrous or something like that. Like when they're infected by this disease or something. That is science fiction I can't do. Science fiction I really like that can be quite dark is how people or society would react in a certain situation, and how people might be controlled or manipulated based on just human nature. I mean, we're kind of seeing that with the pandemic. I'm not getting political. I'm not getting political. Yeah. Oh, Owen Lister, stop with your Star Wars comments. I want to say it. Can you say this exact comment like 2 weeks from now? Force Awakens had good potential and it was squashed by The Last Jedi. I will say this. Force Awakens had the most solid 18 minutes. After 18 minutes, went downhill. Good first 18 minutes. And they didn't do anything with that. I'll say it now because I'll forget. They really they try to pull off that campy humor that was in The New Hope with Force Awakens, and it came off real flat. It just wasn't good. Now Rise of Skywalker, they actually had some of that campy humor that actually really, I thought, worked between Rey, Poe, and Finn. I thought actually it was really good chemistry between the characters. It didn't work in The Force Awakens, but yeah. This doesn't help, Professor. I just like I'm trying to pull away. We'll definitely talk about it. We will definitely talk about it. So why don't we kind of not end, but kind of wrap things up here. So I'm thinking about if you guys want a small, kind of in addition to when I'm talking about melody, kind of a very simple layman's terms composition lesson on melody and how to construct a melody, or what to expect as a listener for melody, or for a good melody. I was thinking about doing that for next week, or I could just go into what I was thinking about for the 8th, and that is the light analysis of the sequel trilogy score, because it's the same composer, It's a different treatment, and dare I say mistreatment, of the musical score. And I have some thoughts on what I saw. And then I could just talk about writing. And I actually might do another commentary video before that earlier that afternoon, maybe construct a commentary video with images and you know what I did with the Clone Wars series. I might do that again. Thanks, Paladin. How to in-law relative. Thank you. Spoil the kids. That is all. No kids yet. No kids yet. Man, they're in Idaho. I may consider going back to the Northwest just to, I don't know. Or my dad's in South Carolina though, so I might stick around in North Carolina. I don't know. I'm torn. But I just renewed my lease, so I'm in North Carolina for another year. Right. Looks like we're wrapping it up. Paladin Demo. You should listen to my electronic music. Bandcamp. Should I post the link again? I also have well, it's not updated, but I have a SoundCloud. Do you do SoundCloud? Let me find my SoundCloud page. It's I'm missing my latest single on it. I haven't uploaded it. Let's see, Sound Engraver. Let's see if this works. Yeah, there we go. So if you're on SoundCloud, I can do that as well. So here is my SoundCloud page. It's not updated. I still have to upload my recent single, Evergreen. So hopefully there's that. I think I almost exited out StreamYard. That would have been bad. Randy Newman wrote songs for Toy Story. Oh, okay, cool. Very cool. Thank you for that. Yes. Wolf 10 Media, just around the riverbed. I thought it was Riverbend, was what I love about Pocahontas as a character. Yeah, that song totally expressed who she was as a character. That's good storytelling with songwriting in it. Steady as the beating drum was what I love about the music of the movie. Yeah, I can't stand when Pocahontas is criticized for not being historically accurate. Guys, it's Disney. So what? Pocahontas was a great Disney movie. Yeah, so what if it's not historically accurate? I don't care. I mean, it's part of the mythos. I'm an American, and that movie, for what they did, intrigued me about the American landscape. You know, it looked fantastical in some respect. I mean, that's perfect. That's what all they needed to do. All right. The reason I'm not a fan of electronic music in general is that it doesn't feel as natural. Yeah, and I understand that. And I hope to get into a skill level where we've got the processing power now. We've got the interpolation. We've got the flexibility and the fidelity now to actually make analog and digital indistinguishable. Or what sounds can be maybe fantastical, but also we can understand it from a primitive human perspective. And so that's what I'm approaching with electronic music. Oh, you're welcome, Prof. Thank you. The myth is just as important as the history. Yeah, I mean, like if they want, well, not now, not these days. If they want a historically accurate Pocahontas film, they can do that too. It was to intrigue. It was to intrigue my young heart. I always wanted to run as fast as her, like book it and then just dive off a huge cliff. Actually, when Wonder Woman came out, and I never saw the movie with Gal Gadot, when she did that dive, I was like, oh hey, it's Pocahontas. Like why did people try to dive from a height? I was like, no, that's Pocahontas. Yeah. Steady as the beating drum. Oh, goodness. And then when she when she sings, I'm not going to sing it in my head voice. I don't have the chops right now to do it. But when she asks, or do you wait for me, dream giver, just around the river bend? And now dream giver kind of sounds a little not mythos, but kind of, the way people might have believed. I don't know. I could be wrong about that. But it was, when she goes into the head voice, and then her hair, the wind comes at her hair. Very jealous of her hair, by the way. But the music, it has a little shimmering of the strings that just really kind of swell. Yeah. Disney was in its prime in the 90s. Oh, dude. Oh, I was going to close out, but let's talk about this. Huck Hodge. Was Huck Hodge teaching at the University of Washington when you went there? I love his music. I will tell you more. Huck Hodge was my composition professor, and I was his very first student. I was brought on board right when he was brought on as an adjunct faculty. You want to know something? His real name is Huckleberry Hodge. So he goes by Huck Hodge. Yeah, he was my teacher for both years, I think. He borderline nearly ripped up my music. not I'm saying figuratively, but he's like, this needs to improve. I don't see the point of you doing this. I'm not seeing this. What you're essentially doing, he pulls out his drawer and he's like shaking objects and items in his drawer. It's like, that's what your music sounds like. Get better. And I would leave out of his office just crying. I'm a college student just crying in front of a professor. Like, I'm sorry, I'll do better. But actually, I pick up on these things as a violin teacher. I compose now, and I work on my craft daily now. But as a composition student, I was lazy. I would procrastinate until the time of the lesson. I was not a good student. I was curious, and I liked being a student. But there's a difference between being a student and being a learner. A student is almost like a vocational thing where you're there because it's required. You're punching in the clock, going out. But if you're a learner, that is much better. And I'm a learner now. I don't need to be at an institution to learn and to grow. I do that now, just with practice. But he was very hard on me. He did not like me. And I think it was because I was his first student. It was his first year as a professor. But yeah, he was my teacher. And I appreciate what he does. He's winning all these prizes and going to Europe and stuff like that. All right, now we're okay. Guys, stop commenting. Make the chat light. I feel so obligated. Let's see. Let's see. Paladin Demo. If the music is good, it's good, but listening to a musician with an instrument is more passionate and natural. I agree. Electronic music is just an extra layer of processing, disconnecting passion just a bit. Dude, you're touching on a very important point. I might even have this as a topic for a live stream. This is really, really important to talk about because I'm an instrumentalist. People, and I've said this time and time again with different people and also probably on live stream. People say, well, why don't you do, a MIDI violin or electric violin? I don't care for the electric violin sound. I love actually even violinists I have high respect for do electric violin, and I never got it. I never got the appeal of the electric violin sound. It sounds like a muted processed saxophone to me. It always has. I love the acoustic. I love the fiddle. I love the mountain. I love the country. I love the Irish. I love the classical. And I want very much to incorporate my acoustic violin sound with my electronics. So dude, we could probably talk about this on a separate stream because I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, I do this every day, so of course I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I agree. Oh, actually, you've probably mentioned it before, and I should look into that. Yeah, no, it's so true. Huckleberry Hodge sounds like Mark Twain character. It probably at one point was a Mark Twain character. I don't know. Huckleberry. He hated being called Huckleberry. Like the older professors, like those, like because he was 30 at the time, I think, when he became a professor. And so the professors in their 50s and 60s, they kind of could get away with it if they did. I don't think they did, but there is one pianist who I had heard, she was a very accomplished pianist, very, very good. And actually she worked with him frequently. And she would go, "Hey, Huckleberry." So I remember actually Huckleberry. I remember when I was journeying to Spokane when I still lived in Seattle as a young kid, or near Seattle as a young kid, we would take road trips through the mountains. And on these mountains, or close to by these mountains, on your way to Spokane, there was a farm. Well, I don't know if it was a farm, but they definitely had. It was a Huckleberry store. Everything it was like an old wood barn, like a grange or something like that, and every piece of the merchandise was Huckleberry everywhere. Real huckleberries, Huckleberry designs. The best part as a kid especially was Huckleberry ice cream. That was good stuff. I'm your Huckleberry. It sounds so hick, just Huckleberry. Huckleberry. We are all learners. We are learning every day. If you're not learning, you're decaying. I think. I'm not sure. Did I say that appropriately? Would have loved to study with him, but he's on sabbatical this year. Yeah, he's been on sabbatical for a couple of years, so I ended up well, you'd have probably had him, especially as an undergrad. I think you would have had him. So you're based in Seattle? That's cool. Welcome. I'm never going back. I'll go back to the Northwest. Seattle has, oh yeah, go to bed. Thank you, Paladin. Thank you for saying that. I'll probably write or something. Go apply. He's probably set to return. Is it 2021 he's going to return? Yes, good night. Guys, go to bed. Good night. I got to close this out. If I have guests on, I promise I will wrap it up accordingly. It's yeah. Oh, dude. Oh, my darling. Oh, my darling. That's all he did was just walk around inside the plot and then sing. Yeah. All right. So comments. I've caught up with comments. Okay. Let's wrap it up. Let's do this. Let's go ahead and plug away. So every Monday night at 9, we've got my commentary on art, probably Star Wars, maybe more on Star Wars writing in a couple of weeks, probably June 8th. Maybe a little bit more on melody next week. If we've done melody all the way down, and then we'll do Star Wars next week, but probably more on melody next week. And then some Star Wars on the 8th. I might, if I have time, do a little bit of Mandalorian the following week. Not sure, the music of Mandalorian, since I'm on a roll, apparently. Have one more month with Disney. Tuesday, of course, office hours, my favorite time of the week, with Troy and Al, Big Al, as special guests on the Profs channel, Professor Geek. And just stay tuned with what's happening. I'm sure there's some good geek news going on, and some talking about stories, archetypes, heroes, all that good stuff. Professor, I'll ask again, do you have anything for Wednesday? Like aspirational heroes? I'm still waiting for part 2, man. I'm still waiting for part 2. So if you have that going on Wednesday, just let us know. Thursday is the book study, Thrawn Trilogy. I think we're coming on to the end. Big Al, what's the chapters? Is it 16 through 20? I can't remember. I'll remember when I open up the book and there's the page. So that's Thursday night at 10. Oh, by the way, office hours are Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Central. Anything happening Friday, Big Al? Maybe with Fan Man? Troy? I'm waiting for some more content from you, Troy. Come on. You and Nanette. I'm still waiting. And rewatch this Saturday. I gotta watch this movie. Professor was kind enough to ask me on board. No pressure if you don't want that. For the Maltese Falcon. So film noir. I'm hoping Joy comes on board with Nanette. I'm sure Al will come. Oh, thank you, Al. 16 through 20. All right. Good. So that's a whole, well, that's most of the week. And I think that's everything. So so let me plug what Big Al is saying. 16 through 20, chapter 16 through 20. Always. Okay, yes, ma'am. Does that mean you and Nanette are doing the Maltese Falcon too? Cool. Because actually, I need to see the movie. It looks good, and it looks like a classic. So film noir, I need to touch on that a little bit more. Anyway, so that'll be fun. Not sure about Fan Man. Cool. Fan Man, just take a look at his channel for his Second Cup Cafe. I like them. They're great. So yeah, office hours Tuesday, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. Wednesday, maybe. Just look out for something. No pressure, Prof. Well, actually, that's 3 nights in a row now that I think about. I can't do that to you. But I just love those aspirational heroes. And I have a few. I have a few to talk about for sure. And I have a reason for talking about aspirational heroes. Actually, I've come to a pretty tall task that's in front of me in my life. And aspirational heroes are the things to turn to for those situations. And Thursday, book reading, Last Command, Thrawn Trilogy. I liked your tweet, Al. It's like, I don't want it to be the end. It's the end. I'm going to miss this. I think you're going to miss Palian. I think that's who you're going to miss. There should be a separate, you should write a separate book just on Palian. So that's yeah, it's been fun. It's been very enjoyable, this particular book study. And I'll be around for Dune. The prof will be doing Scoundrels for the next book study. So that will be good. Maybe Fan Man Friday. And definitely rewatch. Oh, by the way, the Maltese Falcon, I think, you guys got to confirm with this with me. Is this on Professor Geek's channel? Maltese Falcon? And I think after this, we will wrap it up. So just confirm. But yeah, thanks always, guys, for watching. Thanks for a lively chat. Guys, I already have a hard enough time catching up. So thank you for being active on chat and appreciating. And I think yeah, we'll just if there's no more confirmations from you guys on what's going on this week, I think I will wrap it up. So yes. So thank you guys always for watching and listening. Always be on the lookout for some sound experimentation from me every Thursdays, and live commentary on music and art and the like every Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. I really didn't enjoy this one. I did. I sound like I didn't. So yeah, and until we meet again, keep producing and absorbing and loving the art you love. And yes, Prof's channel, Maltese Falcon. Thank you, Al. But yes, until I see you next, keep producing the art you love, and I'll catch you later. Thanks again.